Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sacred Self-Worth interview series. I'm Ilana Varro. I'm here with Karyn Kulenovic, and we are talking intuition, empathy, flower essences, emotions, all the fun stuff that we tend to kind of suppress or ignore or try to help others with, but don't really look at for ourselves. So, Karyn, can you give us a little intro of who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ilana. I work with empaths and people who are highly sensitive. And what I do is I help them to get in touch with their power center so that they can design lives that they love, lives in which they feel empowered. And the way we do this is through coaching, we do it through energy healing and some education. And I'm really passionate about natural paths to healing because I really feel that we do have all the information that we need within us.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you see self-worth coming into play in the work that you do with your clients or in your own life?
Well, self-worth is one of those things that is often overlooked. And in my own life, I've realized that, some of the events that happened throughout my life, external events that happened to me, became internalized with a certain story that I ascribed to something that happened. And so, um, you know, just as an example, when I was growing up and certain events in my childhood, I experienced great heartbreak and, some emotional abuse, sexual abuse. And those types of experiences really affect someone on a very deep level. And we don't always have the words for it, but something happens with our inner dialogue. And so the stories that I began to tell myself were, you're not safe. You're not worthy. You'll never be loved. Really deep dysfunctional types of feelings that arose out of some of these experiences that I had. And what I've found with my clients is that even if they haven't had something traumatic happen, we all have experiences where we tell ourselves a certain story, we make meaning out of what happened, and those experiences are what dictate the decisions we make, the people we choose to let into our lives, and some of the boundaries that we set or don't set for ourselves. So a lot of the work that I do with people is helping them become aware of, some of these experiences that have shaped who they are today.
Mm,
And a lot of it also is reframing them, because we don't want to negate or take away any of the experiences that make us who we are. We want to reframe it in a way where we are actually empowered, where we can see that, oh my gosh, look how strong I was. Look what I survived, look what I created, even though I had this challenging set of circumstances or I
yeah,
had this certain history.
yeah,
So I like to teach my clients that whatever you've been through, there is that power within you to create a change and to create something that is completely different than anything that you've ever experienced before. And we do that through accessing the intuition. We do it through healing the emotions, healing thought patterns. And as we do this, the energy center is taken from outside and brought back within where it actually belongs.
mm,
That's where the self-worth is. That's where the spirit within is awakened, and we start to see that, oh my gosh, I have personal will, and yet I also have this divine will that when I allow myself to open up my heart to what's possible for me and what I'm worth, then I have all this other support that can come in the way of people entering your life. It comes in, quiet thoughts that just drop in that give you direction And so there's a lot less work that needs to be done when you're actually connected to your heart and your intuition.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I love that you point out that it's within, bringing things back into you rather than focusing outward. I think one of the myths that we've been debunking through this series is that self-worth comes from accomplishments or things that you have, or things outside of yourself, when there's this innate worth that people really lose touch with. So I'd love to hear more about how you bring the self back into the person and awaken that kind of internal innate wisdom and worth.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of it is actually through, actually not through a lot of talking. So when we do energy work, I do Reiki, I do, I do some activations with connecting people with their own soul's essence, their heart. And so a lot of that, and flower essences included, works with the subtle energy of a person. And so that is kind of like that divine essence of the person. It's your heart. It's that internal knowing that you've had, before you were born. And it's that part of us that we forget along the way because we are chasing some of these external things that we think are going to reflect our worth. So, some of it's through activations and leading people through visualizations. Sometimes it's through flower essences, which work directly with the subtle energy of emotions. A lot of emotional healing is very, very deep. I feel like there are different levels on a continuum or a spectrum that people allow themselves to experience on a conscious level. But some of the work that needs to be done is on a subconscious level as well.
Yeah.
And so that's where the energy work is very helpful for people because, sometimes there aren't words, and sometimes people can't remember, like if they've had an experience that happened when they were very young, yet they have like an echo of it. They have a certain recognition. So words are very tricky sometimes because they don't always communicate the true experience, whether it be a past reflection or what someone's going through right now. Sometimes the words just don't give it justice. And so the energy work is felt. That is something that can be felt physically in the body. It can be felt with a shift in an emotion where you're just light all of a sudden. And it could be, giving rise to other intuition that will come to you. So I know it seems a little bit out there, a little bit esoteric, but really a lot of what we create in our lives comes from that invisible place, if that makes any sense.
It totally makes sense.
Okay.
And I completely hear you on what you're saying. I'm wondering if there's an example or a practice that you can offer to the audience so that they kind of get a little more tangible experience of what does it mean to connect into your energy, the visualization, that kind of awakening. How does someone who has no experience of energy work kind of wrap their head around this?
Okay, so if we were doing like a simple activation, the first thing would be to connect into your heart. The heart is really the portal between the unseen world and the world that we live in, where we have time, we have space, we have things. So that's the portal. And so the first thing would be simply to breathe into your heart center. A lot of people think that, connecting to spirit is something like way out there, but it actually starts here. So if you can kind of see your heart as a portal, and as you breathe in and out, you're awakening that. As we awaken that, just that simple act of connecting to the heart and breathing, it actually starts to awaken that essence in you. And this is where your soul's purpose become more clear. This is where your self-worth begins to become, more of a divine experience, it's a divine right, really. So this is where people really start to awaken to what is already there and what has been there for a really long time. So it is that experience of awakening. So it's just connecting into the heart and just breathing there. I mean, sometimes I tell clients to just, as you inhale, you're inhaling, into your heart, taking in energy. And as you exhale, you are breathing out and allowing that heart space to expand. And so there's this communication that happens on the in-breath and the out-breath where you are bringing that invisible inner world out to the physical world, because it's that invisible essence of who we are that actually unlocks the self-worth, the abundance, the physical health, all of it. That's where the wisdom is. And so it's putting your energy there. And it's okay. It's good confirmation.
I know, right?
Like, yes. Yeah. So putting the energy there. And then, another way is through flower essences. I work with the Bach flower essences, and that's another healing modality, which is completely natural, no side effects. And it works specifically with the subtle energy of emotions. So, we tune into what are the emotions that you would like to transform? What are some of your trouble areas, whether it be, anger, shyness, lack of direction, overwhelm. There are, a whole spectrum of emotions, and there's actually, over 2 million different combinations because the flower essences are so customized.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing because it is, it's a very simple healing modality, but it's really based on each individual. So depending on whatever the struggle is, we determine which flowers would most support the person, and then they start them, and then, within a couple of days, there is a shift that happens. So that's another way to use the subtle energy and the intuition or the higher self to actually create healing and some movement around, the heart energy or some of the places that people may feel stuck, whether it be conscious or subconscious.
Nice. That's awesome. Do you see any type of recurring pattern when people are dealing with their self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance? Is there a typical kind of emotion that you see people struggle to transform, or that kind of keeps them stuck?
I would say self-worth is one of the main ones. Being able to trust themselves. Trust is like the biggest issue for all of my clients. I haven't met one
for every human.
yeah, exactly. And it is on such a deep level for people that they have trouble even trusting themselves.
Yeah.
So if you can't trust yourself, how can you trust someone else? And that's the dilemma that a lot of my clients are facing, because they know they're very intuitive. I mean, empaths, it's like they have that natural intuition, that natural connection to other people, but oftentimes other people haven't been able to see or feel the things that, the empath has felt and seen. So they haven't received the validation that they needed. To actually believe that, okay, I'm not crazy. I am experiencing this, even though we don't see it in that same way.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing this and it's real for me, whether it be, emotions that another person feels that they're not saying.
Yeah.
Or, maybe even intuiting something that might be happening at that time that nobody else knows about.
Yeah.
So they don't always have that validation. And that's where the trust comes in, is like they start to not trust themselves. And, usually as children are so open with expressing what is happening for them. And if they're shut down a certain amount of times, the story then becomes, you can't speak your truth. It's not safe to speak your truth. You don't know you don't know what you're talking about. So then it
Yeah.
becomes this censoring that happens. And so that's a lot of what my clients come to me with. And so it is validating and showing them that their experiences are real. And we look at life, in real time and actually see that what they are experiencing is real. So it's not just telling them, it's experiencing life through the lens of trust and through the lens of I'm worthy of a happy life. Because a lot of them feel like I'm just one of those people who doesn't get to be happy
Yeah.
in this life.
Yeah.
And so, it's the trust, it's giving themselves permission to be happy. And then it's also dealing with overwhelm. That's another big one, because people who are energetically sensitive, they end up taking on a lot of what isn't theirs. They also end up, working really, really, really hard. They tend to be very focused on completing something just so, and that can be exhausting as well. So, it's managing your energy, and I call it energetic fitness. Knowing when to cleanse your energy field, knowing when to step back, knowing when to ask for support. All of those things are, under that umbrella of energetic fitness and management. So all of those things are important. And those are the three main things I see in my clients that are huge pain points.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once they realize that, oh my gosh, I actually have a say in this, I have some power in this situation, then it's like, oh my goodness, they're unstoppable.
Yeah. And I imagine that some people would want to, like, a lot of times people go from one end of the spectrum to the other. So I think when they start to realize, I'm having things around trust, I'm having things around boundaries with people taking on too much, they tend to shift too quickly into the polar opposite to like try on something new. And, that can backfire. That can also feel unnatural or uncomfortable or not work because it wasn't like a progression. Do you have steps that you take people through so that's not just like a shocking kind of like you have to change everything about yourself and, in order to protect yourself, protect your energy, have healthier relationships or more harmonious relationships?
Yeah, I actually created a 6-step process, which kind of leads people through simple, practical steps that they can use when they're in conflict, either with themselves or with someone else. And it's called the CREATE process, and each of the letters stands for a certain step. So do you want me to go through that?
Yes,
or?
and this is actually the free gift that the audience is getting, right?
Yes, they will be getting an e-workbook that they can work through, and you can download that. And then you'll also be getting it's a webinar that explains it in depth. So I'm just going to kind of give the overview right now, and then you can download the others.
Great. Yeah.
So, okay. So the C is to center yourself. And that's really the first step. And centering can be done in the conflict, like while it's happening, if you're standing face to face with someone or in a stressful situation. And there's a certain list of things that I give that you can do in the moment. But one thing is simply to connect to your breathing, because a lot of people, when they're in conflict, they forget that they have a body.
Yeah.
They're just like totally disconnected.
Yeah.
And so just taking a deep breath, putting your hand on your chest, maybe even just looking around the room and looking at some of the objects is a way to center yourself in the moment. So you're not like completely drifting away with what's happening. Just centering, feel your feet planted on the ground. Very simple. Usually it's connecting to one of your 5 senses. And then centering after the moment, it could be, the same thing, because sometimes things just happen quickly, or you walk into a situation and you're just like, what just happened? So sometimes it's the same. You could do the same thing. Connect to your breathing. You might drink a cup of tea or something where you're actually just a way to simply calm yourself down or just get into the present moment. So that's the first step. The second step is to release what isn't yours, or even release what was yours that isn't no longer serving you. So the R is to release. And so usually this involves doing something.
Okay.
So it's almost like you want to physically release that energy, any negative energy that you may have picked up from the other person or the environment, or even from your own negative thoughts, just to release those. So,
Wow.
so sometimes, I mean, one way is to just, sit and you have a mantra, which is simply release.
Okay.
So you can sit, just a couple moments and just release, and you just release. You can say it out loud, or you can say it in your head. With each exhale, just consciously releasing what is not yours, or even what has been yours. So if you're holding on to frustration, if you're holding on to anger, or someone else's anger towards you, whatever that is, just release it. Just keep pushing that outward. And you do that with your breath, and you do that with your intention. Another way of releasing is to just do something physical and, move your body and literally sweat and move and get that out, because a lot of people hold that in.
Yeah.
And it just makes them sick. It makes them tense. So there's a list of things that I give suggestions in the workbook as well. But basically, it is knowing that you have picked up something that you probably don't want to hold on to, and you need to release it. So that is step 2.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's a big one. And sometimes, at this step, you could actually stop and be okay, center and then release. Okay, I'm good. Sometimes it's not something that's really a big deal. It's just, okay, a little speed bump.
Yeah.
But other times you're going to need to go on to complete the others of the steps. And so step 3 is to express yourself. So this one is really important because it is so easy for people to internalize and start telling themselves things that aren't necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, that's a big one. I mean, and it was for me too, because we can tell ourselves things and go off on these tangents that it's just a complete waste of time and energy,
But we feel so productive in the moment, right?
I know, we just need to convince ourselves.
Totally.
Yeah. So, one way to express yourself is journaling.
Yeah.
And, you just do like a brain dump, and you just say whatever you want to say. You don't censor yourself. You just let it all out without judgment and just put it out there. So that's a way of expressing yourself that's healthy. Another way is, if you are in conflict with someone, you can clear the air. After you've centered and released and you've kind of gathered yourself, then you can reconnect and actually express yourself to the person and clear things up. So that's another way. But, we don't always have that opportunity, and it's not always in our best interest to do that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes the express yourself step can be done with a trusted friend. I've called one of my girlfriends, and we've been friends for years, and it's like, sometimes it is healthy just to vent and to share and to say, this really, I didn't like this experience. This just sucked so badly. And, can you just listen to me?
Yeah.
And, but you do want to be careful of who you express yourself to, and make sure that it's someone who is going to lift you up.
Yeah. And I think that ties so nicely along with the release and the express is, again, the idea of getting it out of your body, metaphorically, literally, like just out of your cells, out of your brain, out of, just out your mouth, like get it all out until you have no more remaining.
Yes. And that reminds me of, the leadership course that we did together. Yeah. And there was a lot of releasing, and a lot of that, it doesn't involve words. So the releasing part is different than the expressing
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
So I want to make that distinction, because sometimes the releasing is screaming into a pillow. I mean,
Yep.
literally.
Yep.
So,
Shaking your hands, jumping around.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the expressing is, it's more conscious,
Mhm.
and, it's really from this calmer space. So I just want to make that distinction as well.
And now I see why you do release first and then express, because you can't really express yourself if you're still holding on to what you haven't released. So I like that order.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's one of those steps. It's like, it's gotta be there. So, express yourself either to yourself, a trusted friend, or even to the person that you need to clear things with. And then the A is to access your intuition.
Hmm.
And, sometimes we forget that we have like this wellspring of wisdom and knowledge and information that we can tap into. And so all it takes is asking. So if you want to access your intuition, you can put out that question. If you're in conflict with someone, what is the best and highest way to resolve this conflict with so and so?
Are you asking this in your mind internally?
Yes. And you're actually putting that question out there. So you can, you can ask whatever higher power, some people talk to their angels or their deceased loved ones, whatever, I guess invisible force that you want to connect to. And sometimes it's just asking yourself, like, okay, I know I can have the answer, but we don't know where it's coming from all the time.
Yeah.
You just put it out there. And, in your mind, in your heart, you can write it down. But just know that invisible force is there all the time. And so when you tap into it by asking a question, you're going to get an answer. A lot of people think that, they're just, if they don't see it, there's nothing there for them.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's that, the universe wants to help us and support us, but it's not going to be able to do that if we don't ask, and same thing with self-worth. It's like, I like to tie it back into that, because if we don't believe that we're worthy of the answers, we're not going to get the answers, and we won't even ask those questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, it's important to ask, and then you get to receive the wisdom and the knowledge that will come through.
Yeah. And I love that you just brought that up, because when we were talking earlier, I was thinking that this process, the create process, is not only helpful for, releasing, transforming your emotions, but also connecting back to your self-worth. Like, this is kind of a worthiness practice also. I'm worthy of expressing myself. I'm worthy of releasing what doesn't serve me. I'm worthy of feeling centered and activating my intuition and being my most whole and complete and connected self. So I'm so grateful that we're going through this, because I think this is, a lot of times people ask, like, okay, well, what do I do to feel more worthy? And, constantly we keep saying it's not a doing, but there are kind of little things, whether it's the way you start to think or the way you start to speak to a higher power, that could be kind of the doing of building your self-worth.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a combination of that practical side, really grounding into what we're doing with our time and our energy, to live in self-worth and be open and give ourselves permission to feel and be and do what we need to do to be our best selves. And so, it's that combination. Like, some of it is like just that experience, and some of it is actually making the decision to do things that are going to support that unfolding of the self-worth, because it truly is a journey. I mean, I would say that, there are times when I feel like, oh shoot, this is not working. And, and so I run through this process myself, because it is those times when you do feel compromised and stressed, that it is helpful to kind of go through something that's practical, where you're like, okay, Once I get to the end of this, I'm going to have some relief and
Yeah.
a better sense of direction. So yeah, I mean, there is that combination, definitely. Um, let's see. The next step 5, is to trust the process, which is simply to know that even though things are not completely the way you would have them be at that particular moment, when you're working through a certain conflict, that everything, even the crappy stuff, even the painful stuff, is leading you to something better. So I always believe that everything is truly working for us.
Mm.
And when we can reframe our experiences, even the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones, in that way, and truly trust that where we're being led is exactly where we need to be, then we're going to have a better experience and we're going to get through it quicker. So, we all have those times where we can look back on our lives and say, like, oh man, that was a really dark time. And yet I see why it was important for me to have experienced that. And so, but at that time, it was just, where am I going? What's happening? And I don't
Yeah.
know. And so that's why just letting go of that control of knowing, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's like, we don't always have to know why
Yep.
at that time.
We want to know, but we
I
don't
know.
have to know.
Yeah. It's like, we really want to know. It's like, why? And that's, part of that is just, it's a natural thing. But that's also trusting in that unseen, that we are taken care of, that we will always be moving toward our best self. And we can get there a lot faster if we don't resist that process that we don't always see.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the step 5. And then the step 6 is E, embody your power.
Ooh.
Embody. Yeah. So embody really what you want to create. So even if you're in conflict and you're feeling, a little bit deflated, you don't want to embody deflated. You don't want to embody that energy. So it does take some mental fitness on your part to be able to embody, because basically what you're doing is you are calling forth the emotion that you want to experience, even though it's not present at that time. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people think you have to feel it in order to experience it. But really, that's where the power center, when we're connected to that, we know that even though I feel crappy right now, I can literally shift that if I embody my power and the emotion that I want to create. So, I've seen clients heal relationships, heal illnesses. I mean, just with this embodiment step, because that is what creates the shift in our cells, the cells of our physical body. It creates the shift in our subtle emotional energy. So it is that focus, that intention that is so powerful. And that's what manifests the results that really work for us, and bring us to that higher level.
Can you give an example of how to embody something when you're not actually feeling it?
Yes. Okay. So one way is to connect to just a positive feeling. And so what I do is I think of a really happy moment. Okay. So I think of my children when they were like maybe one year old, and they have that belly laugh that just is so contagious. You can't even, like, as adults, we don't have that.
Yeah.
You don't hear sounds like that. It's from the babies. And I remember it from both of my kids. And so even when I'm feeling really low, it's like I can call forth that memory and it brings me into that space of joy.
Mm.
So, and you probably will feel a stirring in your heart when you do that. You can think of a hilarious moment, but basically you're searching your memory files for something that was joyful.
Mm.
And you call that to mind, and you actually breathe that into your heart space. From there, you're already opening up, and you're already raising your vibration. And then you choose that emotion that you want to create. So if it's empowerment or feeling powerful, then you start tuning into, okay, this is what it feels like to be powerful. And then, that's kind of a creative process. It's using your imagination though. So if you don't feel it now, obviously, you are imagining what it feels like. And that's how you do it. So you feel it in your body, you feel it in your heart, that excitement, that expansion that happens. So whatever the emotion is that you want to create, or whatever, if it's peace, you begin to create peace by feeling it first.
Mm.
And then, you're kind of on that level. And so that's really what people tend to attract in when they embody a particular emotion. But just to get that going, go back through and choose one memory that's going to open that up first.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that would work for, let's say someone's having a really hard time connecting to a memory from themselves? Do you think it would, like, thinking of a favorite like TV show moment where you remember really laughing or enjoying, do you think that would work that way as well?
Yeah, I think any type of situation that's going to spark feeling or emotion in a positive way is going to be effective.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I
Thank
love that
you.
process. I think that's going to be really helpful for people. I think I'm going to start giving that to my clients too, of just like, here, this is a really great process and easy, right? Like you don't need anything external. It's all happening within you, and really accessible.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. It's just, it's simple. You don't always need to go through all of the steps.
Yeah.
But they're always there. You've got 6 good ones that you can kind of walk through.
Yeah. And just to kind of wrap things up, what is your favorite kind of practice for yourself to really let your worth shine through, live from a place of worthiness? How do you bring that into your particular life?
There's a few ways that I do it. Where I feel the most myself is when I'm writing. And so, that's also always been a way for me to communicate in a silent way. I'm very much an introvert, very feeling type person. So I feel very much who I am when I'm writing, and not only typing, but really just literally writing with a pen or pencil in my journal and jotting ideas down. That's when I feel like me. And so I do that all the time. I mean, every day I'm writing. And it's not always something profound. I mean, it's just the act of writing, which really connects me to who I am and makes me feel like I am being Karyn. It's like, it's so easy because I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm this, I'm that. It's like all these different things. And so when I'm able to do something just for myself, it really is important for me as a self-love, act of self-love, to be able to nurture that part of me and let that come out. And then, of course, being a mom is, I feel like that is a huge part of my purpose here. So I really treasure that as well.
And do you notice things shift when you're really embodying your true essence, your worth? Do you notice things in your health, career, relationships shifting when you're being your most worthy self?
Yes. In every area of my life. Yes. I mean, health-wise, interpersonal relationships, and, building my business, which actually is quite new. It's only a couple years old. And I had to get to the point where I mean, even with my husband, my kids, it's like all of those different steps that I took in my life, I wouldn't have taken them if I didn't believe that I was worthy of that abundance. And so it really starts with that piece of self-worth. And that's why I was thrilled to be a part of your series, because this is a topic that's often overlooked, but it is so crucial.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's that missing piece where people think like, why am I not attracting this? Like, why am I getting the same, why can't I get out of these patterns? And it's like, because you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
You don't see that you haven't given yourself permission
Yeah.
to be wealthy, to be loved, like all of these things. And so
Yeah.
I just think it's brilliant, what you've created here.
Thank you so much. I've learned through my own life experience that worthiness you might get to a place where you think, I got this, I've done the work, I feel worthy, but things still aren't showing up in your life the way you want them to. And so my goal with this whole series was to really get into the little intricacies and the little subtleties that we can still continue to tweak. Even if you think like, I've got, for the most part, like I feel worthy, or, some people might be like, I have zero self-worth. I'm not on that journey at all yet. And so just really reflecting like all the little tiny things that we can start to do, think, be, live our lives in a different way. And that will shift who we are. And like you said, it always starts with your relationship to yourself. It's there's a reason they say it's an inside job, right? Like it starts with you. You can't have anything outside, or maybe you'll have little glimpses of it, but true, lasting love, health, wealth, there has to be a foundation of self-respect, self-worth, self-acceptance. So thank you for being a part of it and sharing your perspective and your wisdom. And how can people find you if they want to come work with you, come follow you on social media?
Thank you, Alana. I can be found at healinginbloom.com, and you can connect with me there. I'm also on Facebook, Healing in Bloom, and Twitter as well, Instagram. But I think I'm mostly on Facebook, so that'd be a great way to stay in touch with me. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much. Well, I really, we connected so well during the leadership program that we were in. And I'm very empathic. I'm very introverted. So there was this safety and connection and depth that I really loved about you. And so I'm so happy to have you be a part of this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you.
Yeah. And there will be a link below to all of Karyn's info and the free gift. And thank you again so much for your time.
Of course. My pleasure.
Take care, everyone. Bye.